Support for this podcast and the following message come from Corient. Corient provides wealth management services centered around you. They focus on exceeding your expectations and simplifying your life. Corient has been helping high achievers just like you enjoy their lives more fully, preserve their wealth, and provide for the people, causes, and communities they care about. As one of the largest integrated fee-only registered investment advisors in the U.S., Corient has deeply experienced teams in 23 strategic locations. Corient has extensive knowledge spanning the full spectrum of planning, investing, lending, and money management disciplines. Leverage Corient's exclusive network of experts to craft custom solutions designed to help you reach your financial goals, no matter how complex they may be. Real wealth requires real solutions. For more information, connect with a wealth advisor today at Corient.com. That's Corient.com. Corient.com.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. So you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected. And 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
Thanks for tuning in to Comedy Album Book Club. In celebration of the recently released and highly praised Netflix stand-up special by Adam Sandler, we're happy to give you this special encore presentation of our December 2017 episode, They're All Going to Laugh at You, by Adam Sandler. Jason sat down with Jordan Kennedy, John Blair, and Kat Letwin to discuss this early outing by the comedian, where he really explored the possibilities of the comedy album format. While many may feel it didn't age well, it is an interesting juxtaposition against his later work and his most recent stand-up special. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the episode.
Oh, well, I think if that album came out now, it'd be called Trigger Warning, wouldn't it? Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comedy Album Book Club, and that was Adam Sandler's very first album, They're All Gonna Laugh at You. Came out in September 1993. It was produced by Brooks Arthur. He's a Grammy Award-winning producer. He produced albums for Robin Williams. This album, along with his 1996 follow-up, What the Hell Happened to Me, both went double platinum, meaning each album sold over 2 million copies. It's insane. As of 2014, this is the 5th best-selling album of all time. The first is What the Hell Happened to Me. Crazy. The album also stars, as you probably recognize some of the voices there, David Spade, Rob Schneider, Alan Covert, Tim Meadows, Conan O'Brien, and Judd Apatow, and had writing staff such as Robert Smigel, Bob Odenkirk, and Tim Herlihy. Adam Sandler was born in 1966. He was on The Cosby Show in 1987 at the age of 21. He was only in about 4 or 5 episodes. Joined Saturday Night Live in 1990 at the age of 24. And his first headlining film was Billy Madison in 1993. Adam Sandler's films have grossed more than $2 billion. Let that sink in for a second. And his estimated net worth is $340 million. So I guess we can all just give up. So that's the album we've all just listened to here at the Social Capital Theatre here in Toronto, and I suggest anybody listening at home to listen to that album before going any further. Okay, so I've got a few guests tonight. My first guest, he is an actor-comedian, teaches improv right here at the Social Capital Theatre. He has a new class coming in February. His name is Jordan Kennedy. Give a hand to Jordan Kennedy. How are you, Jordan?
Okay, here we go.
So you teach improv here at the Social Capital Theater.
That's true. Yes.
How's that?
You're great.
Oh, that's all I wanted to hear. I am a student of Jordan's. I've been studying with him for a couple of months now, and no further questions. All right, my next guest is an actor. She's an actor in the web series Good Morning Tonight. And just a few days from now, the taping of this, December 12th, here at the Social Capital Theater, will be in a show called I Know What You Did Last Christmas. Please welcome Kat Letwin. How are you, Kat?
Well, I just listened to an Adam Sandler album.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that. Can you tell us a bit about Good Morning Tonight?
Sure, cool. Yeah, it's a post-apocalyptic morning show. So it's exactly what you think it would be.
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, if you listening at home know what I think it would be, you also know what it would be. Our next guest is a comedian and writer. He's written such things as 22 Minutes, and one of my favorite sketches that you can find on YouTube, Batman versus Batman. Please welcome John Blair.
Yay!
How are you, John?
I'm good. I'm okay.
All right.
I've just come across town from the annual Screenwriters Guild Christmas party, so
Right.
I am what I would describe as business lit. It's like I'm kind of lit, but only to a business degree.
Oh, wow.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
You got
Very
an MBA in drinking. Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Very professional.
Yeah.
Batman versus Batman starred, of course, my Batman costume.
Yes, and thank you for that.
You're welcome. One of my favorite things in that, which I believe was written by, I think it was improv by you in the sketch, was there's sort of an alternate world Batman, and instead of crying boo hoo hoo, he says, hoo boo 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 boo.
Yeah, that's
Comedy
what crying
gold,
is
my
like
friend.
in an alternate universe. That's how it sounds.
Makes so much sense. No one here could argue that. Okay,
That's
well,
the
welcome.
only thing different
everybody.
about that.
Right, yeah, the feeling is the same. It's simply the expression of said feeling that is different.
I feel like
yes.
Adam Sandler would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Nice segue.
Especially in
So-
1993.
So, Jordan,
Present.
why did you want us to do this?
It's a fair question.
We spoke a while ago. We've known each other for many years, and this is volume 4 of this show. And I said to you, "Hey, you should be on the show. What's an album you think you'd like to do? One of your favorite albums, one of the most important albums of all time that you revere above all others." And
It's this and the Joshua Tree. Yeah.
yeah, that's a very funny album.
Both of them were thrust upon us. Yeah. Great.
So, please tell us what made you chose this album.
I felt like putting a group of people through something unique. No, I mean, when I think of comedy album and I think of my earlier years, like this is the one that I remember on the schoolyard being the one that everybody was quoting and everybody was imitating and talking about. If you're angry but also horny, this is the perfect album.
Yeah, that's
for
why
you.
it was a big hit at all the drama camps I ever went to. Like, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So you're a fan as well, Kat?
I was actually just texting my brother before this show started because we used to listen to Adam Sandler albums together all the time. We had a copy of this album in particular, and my dad found it and read the liner notes to medium pace, and was just like, "David, you have to throw this album out now. We are a good Christian family," and then we weren't. So it was fine. We kept the album.
This album made you a
Yeah, it had. Oh well, if
Like
you
the
bought
lyrics?
the album at a local Sunrise Records, then yes, it absolutely did. And I recall also like I still know like pretty much all the lyrics to like Lunch Lady Land and the Thanksgiving song, and it was like much like Weird Al Yankovic growing up. It was one of those albums that if you considered yourself someone who was a fan of comedy, like this was something that like you and your friends totally knew all about. And even when I got my mom to listen to the They're All Gonna Laugh at You sketch in particular, she thought it was so funny that at one point during dinner, all she said was, "They're all gonna laugh at you. And it was just like we couldn't get through the entire dinner without her saying that.
That's incredible.
So there's that. But then there's also all the other sketches. Anyway.
No, that's fair. They're all going to laugh at you sketch is so strange. It's called Oh Mom.
Yes.
And
With
it's
an ellipsis.
Yes, and it's 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, basically of Adam Sandler playing a mother doing that, and it's
not a moment unwasted.
Wait. Not a moment unwasted.
It's
based on Carrie.
Based on a
Carrie.
Carrie reference.
Yeah, a very small moment in the movie Carrie. Yeah, and I guess what it's like on a regular day to live with that mom. What about you, John? How far back does your experience with this album go?
I was straight up 12 when this came out, and straight up 12. No messing around.
Gangsta
I was
12.
12. I was as 12 as you could.
OG 12.
But, when I was a kid, I was like the kid who was really into comedy, and I was, as I reflect on it now as an adult, insufferable to my friends and loved ones for like a person who was like always like quoting comedy shows, and I watched SNL every night since I was like 9, even though I didn't get any of the jokes. But I was like, oh, did you like? I'd be repeating jokes I didn't understand on the schoolyard. But Sandler was like, he was this interesting addition to the cast on SNL because he really carved out a thing. Whereas like this is the cast member with the mind of a child. And so the novelty of this album being like this is like the man boy on the SNL cast doing this really blue album was like, wow, I am definitely going to listen to this on my paper route. Because right now it's completely my wheelhouse. It was like you might notice listening to this, he was I think 27, 28 when it was recorded.
27, yeah.
But almost like I would say probably about 75% of the content is about people in a high school. Right?
Yes.
So it's like this is all material that he came up with in high school and is like, yeah, I can do an album. I've got all that stuff I came up with in high school. But to a 12-year-old, it's like, this is so sophisticated. It's about a high school. This is so beyond my, drink a cognac listening to this.
Yeah, this was an extension. He talked about how when he was on Saturday Night Live, I mean, he was doing stuff like Opera Man and the Canteen Boy and silly songs.
Canteen Boy.
And people talk about how he was never really ironic or mean-spirited or satirical. He just wanted to be funny. He was just very silly. And this album is basically all the stuff they wouldn't let him do on TV.
Let him do on the show.
Yeah. For obvious reasons. Yeah, and what I really appreciate about this album was at this time in the early 90s, a lot of the albums were sort of still the old guard, like Jonathan Winters was making albums, Robin Williams, Carlin, Sam Kinison, and it feels like those were for sort of an older generation. And it felt like our generation felt like comedy albums are a thing of the past. And this felt like a revival to me. It wasn't a stand-up album. That's not what he wanted to do, which probably would have cost a third of what this album cost.
Yeah, sketch is always much more expensive.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more writing involved, production. There are a lot of different people featured on the album. But also, the sound design is incredible. And they didn't use libraries of sound effects. They created a lot of their own sound effects. Sandler was really insistent on having his vision, portrayed as richly as possible for the ear. As stupid as this stuff was.
So when he was beating a woman to death in the severe beating of a high school Spanish teacher, he was just like, I don't know, is it the peat moss that's wrong, or is it the golf club that's off? Like, what do I need? Like, I just want them to, like, the skull is crashing in on itself, but it's not imploding because I am specific in my sound design. Like,
yeah, it's pretty creepy to think that they needed to be that specific, but it is. After saying that, it's hard to say this, but it was beautiful in a way. It really is realistic. All the sketches, you feel like you're there. You know, they whether you want to
for
be
better
or
or
not.
for worse.
For better or for worse. Yeah, and we listened to 12 tracks today, and there were not quite double that, but the beating of a blank was sort of a recurring runner in the show.
But I find it interesting interesting that, of course, Adam Sandler was like beating up on all of these authority figures. When you hear a lot of the other premises of his sketches, it's all about being humiliated and being lesser than. And then hearing him take out his aggression on authority figures does kind of make sense. Like, even, I will say, medium pace. Let's go back to that stalwart gem of a sketch right now. I actually find it kind of lovely in a weird way, because like sometimes when people are they be fucking, and when they're doing that, like, it's the things that they are into are just really weird and strange. And I found that the way that he explored that idea was actually kind of, in a weird way, beautiful. Where he's like, yep, I just want a shampoo bottle up my ass and I want to be humiliated, and that is who I am, and that is totally fine. And then even at the end of the sketch, when he's talking about being humiliated because he comes so soon, he's just like, look, I'm going to do better next time. But it's honestly like, that's part of the joy, is that he's totally not going to do better next time.
That is such an interesting take on that you saw it as this sort of embarrassed, humiliated man who was apologizing but still trying to be kind of cool throughout singing a cool song. I basically saw it as a guy who was just trying to expose himself to us through this ridiculous song. Listen to how many ridiculous things I can say that are rude and nasty. And it's great that you had that poetic spin on it. But I mean, so much of this album just feels like, look at my penis, like almost
check out
every
this
sketch.
dick, it's okay. Like,
and I think he grew up with a bunch of sisters, and he was the only boy. And I wonder if it's traced to like he never got to express himself at all. Like, he was dominated by his sisters, and I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever psychoanalyzed Adam Sandler.
Yeah,
nor should they.
but that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite sketch in this, Jordan, or song, or is there something that sticks out to you?
The one where the hey buddy, those are actually pencil shavings.
Right.
It's funny because bass, as a lot of this stuff is, like, all of the beats are there, like the heightenings, like as a comedy person, like the heightenings there. There's turns, there's fake outs, like it's all there. It's just really dumb.
Yeah,
but it's all there.
That's a neat one. That's neat you mentioned heightening, because I feel like a Saturday Night Live often falls into the rut where they figure out a joke for a premise, and they just do a whole bunch of the same joke, and then they just sort of walk away.
Yeah, and it's like 5 minutes later.
Yeah, and
like, we did a thing.
It hasn't necessarily heightened or resolved, but every beat is so long. It's like and so you can sort of see it coming, but yeah, everything sort of heightens, and then to the ridiculous point of him being dead.
And I think part of that, Joey, is the anticipation, because we know exactly what's coming next. As soon as he says, after we realize that the LSD is fake, and he says, yo, but this weed, we're like, oh, we know this weed is fake. But there's a joy, just like, I know for myself, in my cruelest moments in high school, when someone was just like going on about something, I'm just like, you don't even know exactly what you're going on about, or just like, I'm just waiting for you to give me a moment to tell you exactly how you're wrong. Like, it's that same
satisfying,
kind of joy.
Yeah, I think Sandler is at his funniest on the album in this sketch. Like, I absolutely agree. That's my top sketch on the album, because I mean his the voice stuff and the character stuff is what kind of makes him. It's his sort of claim. But when he's just on this side, like, doing that really patronizing, like, oh yeah, you are, because you smoked all those joints. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you smoke them. And he's just like leading him along and I don't know who the other guy is. Is that Schneider? Is
it might be like, Tim Hurley?
Might be Tim Hurley.
Yeah, I think so,
yeah. I couldn't tell, but it's a rare kind of reversal of him playing the other side of a sketch. And I think, and maybe it's because it's the only time on the album that he gets to really do it. But I think he's so funny just in that, like, goading on role.
He's better at that in his movies, I think, too. Like Happy Gilmore, when he just plays this angry regular guy, he has some, great lines in that when he's just being a jerk to people, as opposed to something like Little Nicky, where he's got this weird voice going on, and it just doesn't work. That sketch, though, I feel like has that tag on the end that isn't necessary. I wish that
they bring
movie,
back the buffoon?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess it's a tie-in to the other runner.
Yeah, but it's interesting, the runners that he focuses on in that album, where it's the buffoon, where it's the severe beating of whosoever happens to be your target. Like, what is it about the mind of this man-child that like these are the people that you focus on? This is what you believe will be the thing that ties everything together, or that people want to hear, or at least for you personally is the most interesting part of your psyche. Like, I'm really super into this idea of psychoanalyzing Adam Sandler, so I'm just gonna fucking run with this right now.
Well, I'm wondering if it's almost the opposite. If he's trying to be subversive, like the idea of these beatings, they're offensive, but they basically sound the same. It's, it's, I mean, they sound very realistic, but there are, 4 1-minute-long sketches of just sound effects of somebody being beaten to death. That's it's kind of gutsy to put that history.
And you know what? Here I am, a 30-year-old needing lumbar support, acting all high and mighty about this, but I for sure downloaded all of, like, before I got the full album, definitely downloaded all of the beating sketches from Napster. When I was younger, and like I could quote each one, and it was something that my brother and I loved, and I could repeat at school. And
what did you love about it?
I think I liked the simplicity of it, and frankly, I liked the sheer violence of it.
Really?
And I liked when I could hear it repeated. I mean, this was also the era where "You Kicked My Dog" was really popular.
Yes, right.
There's this like this release in it, and especially as a kid, when your comedy ideals aren't as necessarily well developed or refined, or you don't understand the world about you the way that you do eventually when you become an adult. When you just hear someone like getting the shit kicked out of them, and you have the narratives telling you like, no, this is funny, it's okay to laugh at it, it's fine, the world is awful and this is awful and you're awful, but we're awful, and I'm making lots of money, so you could too maybe one day if you think that this is as bad as I do. So those are my thoughts.
Fair
on
enough.
that. Yep.
I'm curious, those in the audience, who heard the album by applause for the first time tonight?
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you
Okay.
had friends
Okay.
in school.
There are
Yeah.
only 10-year-olds and 90-year-olds here. So, fair enough.
I'm not totally surprised by that, because there were a lot of things that I feel like the people here on stage, we were almost laughing at with our hands over our mouths, almost guilty for laughing at, and no one else was laughing at. Like, wow, people, you guys think this is funny? You guys thought this was funny? Like, yeah, there's a lot of what I think would be called misogyny now, probably then.
Thank you for looking at
lot
me
of
while you
violence.
said that. I really
Is that
appreciate
what
I
that.
meant to be looking at Jordan,
Is that
the
the
poster
term for
boy.
it these days?
Did you just call me the poster boy of misogyny?
I did. I tried to suddenly call you the poster boy of misogyny. Yeah. Anti-misogyny.
Yeah.
But even
That's a good thing.
I also remember so before I re-listened to the album before this podcast tonight, there were a few titles that always stuck out for me from this album that I've always carried with me, and I didn't necessarily remember the sketches themselves, but I always remembered the idea of Toll Booth Willie.
Oh, it's over.
Oh, buddy. And I think at the time I was especially laughing at the game of the scene within it, where you have this guy, anytime someone comes up and just like completely insults him, like it was always so exciting to hear what the next round of insults was going to be. And as a kid, I'm like, every single new thing coming up was creative and awful and gross and subversive, and I fucking loved it. I loved it so much. And then listening to it now, as someone who writes and performs comedy, and hearing kind of like the lazy ways that they fall back onto insults, like, you get the game of the scene so quickly and so easily, like, okay, anyone who comes up is going to insult this guy, but the ways in which he chose to insult the people, and again, like especially the woman who comes up and has the fake out of like, oh, I'm gonna be nice to you. Guess what? I'm not. And then,
that happens 3 times too. He's got the bishop.
Yeah,
thinking
and then
they might be,
Who drank too
and then
much.
there's an old lady, and
Yeah.
I mean they go back to the well a few times.
yeah, but he
with
doesn't like
somebody
threaten to
surprising.
rape them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that.
Just for non-comedians listening, the game of the scene is a really pretentious improv
Yeah.
format. that
Thank
maybe
you for
not
calling me
everybody-
pretentious. I really appreciate that.
It
not
basically
not
means
you specifically, just
Oh, but I am
all of us who
specifically,
do
yeah.
it. Yeah.
The-
Pattern, basically.
Yeah.
repeated joke.
I was thinking of this today. If we're talking about Toll Booth Willie,
we are.
We are. I think we're there.
You're
We're at
right.
that
We are
point.
all
we're
Toll
at that
Booth
point.
Willie.
Yeah. So I was listening to this on YouTube earlier today for study purposes, and when we got to Toll Booth Willie, someone had commented, and one of the top comments was like, "Oh man, pranking the toll booth guy used to be one of the top ways to prank someone, other than like crank calling them or whatever." Right. And that reminded me, like, there is a really like historical kind of zeitgeisty, like, this album really lives in 1993 when like the Jerky Boys were big, and like Kick My Dog was a thing, and prank calls would go viral, and there was no way to tell who had phoned you, and it was like back then it was very much in like the popular culture to like pull the pants down of authority figures. Yeah. And that's all this album is. And it lives completely in that 1993 kind of like,
sure.
we're gonna, crank call the guy at the toll booth or our teacher, or, in a more extreme example, we're gonna go, kick the shit out of the bus driver or whatever. Right. But that's what almost the entire album is.
And that's really who Adam Sandler was at the time.
Yeah.
Too. He was this 27-year-old kid. People tell stories about how they'd walk in on him at like 4 a.m. When he was at Saturday Night Live or something, and he'd be sitting by himself in the writer's room, prank calling like a deli, telling them how bad their sandwiches were, just because he had free time, and he is by himself. Yeah, and he just thought that was a funny thing to do. So if anything, this is a good way to like harness his energy.
It's his
get him
soul
off the
laid
streets.
bare. Yeah, that's what's inside of him.
Apparently, he would be working at like 2 a.m. on like the Hanukkah song or something, and ask like other writers if they wanted to help out with it, and they would be like, "Oh no, I'm okay. I'm gonna go home and go to bed or whatever." And like later on, when that song became a huge deal for years, they were like, I could have paid my children's college education if I had been co-writer on that song.
Right. Pursuant to your point about this being very much a 1993 album, I think the entire span of years between like 91, even like 89 through to like 99, 2000. I mean, those were the years that like Weird Al was most active and effective and popular. And so, of course, something like Adam Sandler's like 8 Crazy Nights would be so popular that they made an animated movie out of it. Like, when in 2017, I ask you, audience, both in front of me and hearing me right now, when would a parody song be turned into like a full budget movie? And
they are making a movie based on the video game Rampage, apparently.
That's not really a parody song. That's more like a video game.
But I think it speaks to how far we've fallen in pop culture.
Yeah.
We'll
Remember
make
that?
movies out of.
When was that? When did that game come out? Like 96, 95?
Oh, I think
don't know.
before that.
John, do you know?
I can know very shortly.
It's right, because we have the equivalent of the Library of Alexandria at our
John's a
at all
cyber
times.
organism from 1985, so it takes him a little time, but you can access anything you want. Do you guys think like 12 or 13-year-olds hearing this album now would laugh at it? You think it's still accessible and relatable, or do you think they're more sensitive to some of the things that are considered offensive now and wouldn't find it funny?
I know, like, as a young woman listening to it, where I loved the jokes a lot, but a lot of the content of the jokes I made a conscious choice to ignore. Where I'm like, this is. I know, like, the setup of this is very funny, but there's also so little other media for me to consume that at all would reflect my thoughts and experiences. So you make your deals.
Well, first of all, Rampage was released in 1986, and just looked it up. 1986. Well done. But more pursuant to the point of this discussion, I think that there is also a bit of not only in content but in structure. I mean, this was, as you said before, such like a sort of regenesis of the sketch album. But I think. I feel like the format of it has come a bit further, where like it's like, I don't know if this sounds like dickish to say, but like the structure of some of these sketches seems so like almost like primitive, like proto sketch.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I was, Kat and I were talking about this when we were listening to the album, and I mean, one thing I think is like the sketches like Fatty McGee or the sketches like The Longest Pee that end in like someone rattling off a dumb joke and everyone laughs, and then there's like that like ha 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 ha, and it's generally accepted as this way of being like, we didn't have an ending for this one.
Yeah.
But those endings are better than the endings to any of the other sketches. All of the other sketches just stop.
Right.
And they're like,
it's not a clear
like,
ending.
yeah, there's like, and like some sketches, like I'm So Wasted, have a clear game. And some sketches just have a noise that occurs through the entire thing. And it was just like, I was listening to Fatty McGee on my headphones today, and Jocelyn, my partner Jocelyn, is in the same room with me and just leans over from her computer because all she can hear from out of my ears is for 3 minutes. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm listening to a comedy album, if you can believe it. I feel like the form of sketch has maybe become a little more sophisticated since then.
But I wonder too, like we kept saying how this is so adolescent and juvenile, and we were all very young when we heard it. Like, is it also that this is just targeted at people who don't have a sophisticated knowledge of comedy? Like,
probably exactly.
I mean, for the 12-year-old, 13-year-old audience, I mean, a lot of these sketches, beyond being clever or juvenile, they're predictable to me now, and not super funny. I think I find them funny because I remember finding them funny.
Yes,
sure, yeah.
That's
There's a
big
nostalgia
difference.
to this.
Yeah.
That's why it was kind of crickets for the people here who hadn't heard it before.
I do remember, though, at the same time that I was hearing Adam Sandler's comedy albums, it was the first time I also got into Monty Python. And so here are two different comedy voices that are just, I would say, like wildly opposed to one another. And yet, like as a kid, I still love them and cherish them both. And
Python's very nonsensical. As well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like going
and-
into the idea of absurdity. And I think with what was said before about the idea of Adam Sandler tackling authority figures, I would agree with you in saying that us hearing this tonight was certainly like tapping in to a nostalgic part of ourselves. And yet, I will still say things like the Thanksgiving song hold up for me. I love, like, for me, like the way that it's set up, where you have him starting to talk about, like, talking about turkey because it's good, like, and tee-hee. But then just following his thought pattern as he goes off into absurdity, where he's like, I can be singing about a turkey lunch and then suddenly be talking about Daryl Strawberry or about a poster that I had, where it's like you were following the way that his brain synapses fire. And I found that to be like charming and frankly very honest.
And it's done in a sweet enough way that at the end you feel like, oh, I've just heard like a Christmas song or something that I like.
The live songs are a great reminder of why people found him so endearing.
Sure.
Yeah, because like when you see him, and it's like, oh, look at him. Like, and it's
all
very
high.
charming.
Yeah, look at them all high on the stage.
Yeah.
Don't clap, you guys are messing me up.
Yeah.
But
charming.
I mean,
Very charming.
he's built a career on tapping into that
Boyish charm.
Yeah, boyish charm, and I mean, he's done much better than anybody would have ever thought.
Better than any of us, like Jesus.
Well, yeah.
So far.
I didn't need to
So far.
personalize it, but
We could still get that $130 million net worth.
Yeah, give me a couple.
I think being one of Sandler's like tertiary friends would be the best.
Oh my god.
Oh
Just,
yeah,
like,
Alan
do 2
Covert,
days on
like was he the guy in Grandma's Boy?
Yeah.
He somehow got a movie.
Oh, he's got the best life.
I looked him up today. I think he's worth like 20 million or something. No, 8 million. It's 8 million.
So is he just
superstar, but-
one of his buddies, like who's
Yeah.
in occasionally the occasional bit? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Right.
Good for him. That's a good place to take a little break. We'll take a few minutes. We'll take some questions from the audience. There's some paper and pens in the back there if you guys are curious about any other thoughts on anything about or with something you want to talk about. And grab yourself a beer, hit the bathroom. We'll come back and talk a little more. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Comedy Album Book Club is recorded live on the first Thursday of every month at the Social Capital Theatre in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Join us, won't you? We listen to the album at 9:30 p.m., and then we record the panel discussion for the podcast. Tickets are pay what you can, with some proceeds going to Covenant House, Canada's largest agency for at-risk, homeless, and trafficked youth. For more details, please visit us at comedyalbumbookclub.com. I'm Jason DeLine. Thanks for listening.
Yes, we can all start religions based on science fiction.
And we're back.
The conversation took a weird turn.
All right, we got some applause for coming back from one person.
People are sitting cross-legged now. It's very no. It's great.
No, it's cool.
It's
You
very
seem very
relaxed.
at home.
Everybody have a good break? We feeling good after the break?
Yeah.
All right. We got some questions during the break. Let's see what happens. We got quite a few here. Okay, here's a question. Sandler has some genuine musical ability. Do you think there's any thought process behind how he uses music in his comedy?
You know, the actual orchestration of the songs is very catchy and good, and some of the songs on that, "Loving You."
Loving You? Which one do you think?
I think it's called "Loving You." It's the really
Medium pace.
Medium
Sorry,
pace.
medium
Oh,
pace.
medium
Yeah,
pace.
that's my G-rated version of it.
Yeah.
If you, I guess that's the whole setup of the bit. But if you substituted regular PG or G-rated content for that track, it would be a very serviceable 3.5 minute love song or whatever.
Yeah, it's very ballad-esque, like 93. I mean, that's not far away from Guns N' Roses, Don't Cry November Rain, stuff like that. Aerosmith.
Well, then also even thinking of his bit as Opera Man on SNL, I think there is a very, very rich tradition of comedians who have just enough musical talent that it can be funny and also kind of really good. But there's a point in your life where you choose what am I going to really concentrate on? Is it going to be comedy or is it going to be music? And you can have just enough of either to make one of them work. I find though, with a lot of his songs, when he starts going off into very clear comedy, when he goes into his crazy higher range, but he's not doing it in a way that is at all trained. He's still hitting the notes, but he's doing it in a way that's funny. To me, it just feels like a way of him still being able to express himself through music, but then also hiding behind this veil and not quite being ready to be as vulnerable as one has to be when it's just pure music. So.
I find it very interesting you saying that you can sort of have a little bit of one or the other. And, we were talking about last month, we did the Smothers Brothers on the show. And we were talking about how to be really to be funny at something, you have to be good at it. And the Smothers Brothers are incredible musicians, and they're very disciplined comedians, and you can't tell where the scripted stuff veers off into improv with them. It all feels off the cuff conversations. It all feels very natural, but they're clearly well-written jokes that have been rehearsed a million times because they all land and they're all very funny. But they do this within this framework of incredible folk musicians with great harmonies and amazing at playing the guitar. And Nug Nargang was my featured guest last month, and he was saying how it's so much funnier if you do something like a dancing sketch, and then in the middle of the sketch, you sort of reveal that you're an incredible dancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you can play around within it.
It's you have to know the rules before you can really break them.
Yeah, and I feel like Adam broke them without knowing them. I don't think he's that good a musician. I mean, I feel like he probably learned 4 or 5 chords and wrote some cute songs. But that was his audience. They didn't care. He's not a musical act per se.
I feel like a lot of times on this album, he's at his best during the musical stuff. I think. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's exactly it. He's just in a nice, comfortable place with it. It's fun when you hear him doing that stuff live. Everyone's enjoying themselves. For my money, one of my favorite Sandler movies is probably Wedding Singer, and I think that he has a great time with that, leaning into that kind of side, and I think it's a place it's a place where you get to see him kind of feeling at home, which is nice. And it lends, in this case, it lends to some of the, for me, the brighter points on the album.
But then also in The Wedding Singer, there is a genuine kindness and a sweetness to it that is missing from an album like They're All Gonna Laugh at You.
Sure.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, that comes from the studios, that comes from his director, that comes from.
Well, yeah, Adam Sandler didn't write The Wedding Singer.
Well, yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
We're seeing just his id laid bare on this album. Like, yeah.
What if my dick had a voice anyway?
All right, so the answer is yes.
Yes. Yes.
The simple answer
a firm
is
yes.
Or even like in 50 First Dates, like
Oh yeah.
romantic comedy.
Yeah.
He like does his little ukulele song.
Yeah, that's right.
It's hilarious.
For those of you at home, an audience member just brought up 50 First Dates and how romantic the ukulele songs are.
And I wonder if that also came specifically from his continued collaboration with Drew Barrymore.
Well, she makes him look good.
Yeah. Oh boy. I mean, she'll make anybody look good. Like,
She can make you believe she's in love with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
I mean, give this woman an
You know,
Oscar.
she started in the Stephen King movie, of course. Like, yeah, she can make anything look
She's
good.
used to play with terrifying things.
Yeah. But as you said, yeah, with that ukulele song, like, and I think it was a very canny move on behalf of the movie, on the director's part, where you clearly have this kind of like man boy child who is doing all this dumb shit, and then in the collective consciousness of our society, we know him to be a man boy child who does dumb shit, and then to see him actually kind of like part the curtains of that and just give us like a real sweet peek into something that's deeper and lovelier, and especially to be able to do that to someone who is lovely and deeper. There's a way that we as an audience can access that, where we still are able to laugh at him, but then it makes it that much better knowing that someone who is so used to hiding behind his own ideas of humor, to see him like just be a nice human being who really cares about someone else. I think that makes it very special.
Welcome to psychotherapy with
No,
Who are you,
Who are you? I don't think he could get away with any of this if he wasn't like a really nice guy.
Yeah.
That people really love, and
that's a good point.
And is known in the industry as
Right.
like a guy
Yeah.
who is very, very good to his friends and is very loyal.
a
And,
hateful, mean person probably couldn't.
Yeah, can you imagine Bill
People
Burr
wouldn't
doing a
enjoy
movie
this.
with Drew Barrymore? Like, ugh, fucking yuckers.
Yeah. We're fucking in love. I don't know. Clang, 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 clang.
Yeah, shut
Wrote a fucking song for you. Yeah. His songs are terrible.
Clang, clang, clang.
Clang, clang,
I don't
clang.
play guitar. What do you think I am? I play football.
suck my dick.
My dad beat the crap out of me every day. I don't have time to play guitar. Yeah, that's a movie I did
This
not want
movie
to
is going to be made in 2018. No one knows that.
see. It'll be 14 minutes long. Okay, well, this might segue into the next question. How does Adam Sandler relate to Andrew Dice Clay?
Jordan?
And I'm the Andrew Dice Clay of this trifecta.
Yes,
Clearly.
I think that's very.
We all just assume since you picked this album that you're a huge Andrew Dice Clay fan.
I think my misogyny has been firmly established earlier. People think Andrew Dice Clay is that guy. Nobody thinks Adam Sandler is the guy he is in the bits because they know he's a good guy. I'm not saying Andrew Dice Clay is not a good guy. Maybe apparently he actually is. Family Man and stuff, but there's a way that Adam Sandler was able to blur the line between the performance, or I guess the other way around. Andrew Dice Clay, he was so entrenched in that bit that people thought he was a leather jacket, chain smoking guy. But at the heart of Adam Sandler's bits is a sweetness that I think Andrew Dice Clay, at least in his act, lacks.
That's really interesting, because when I think of Adam Sandler, I think, like I said before, with Happy Gilmore, I think a lot of his more acerbic characters where he's nasty to people and has these great one-liners. But in Happy Gilmore and a lot of the other things, those one-liners come from an underdog to the voice of authority. And he also feels like maybe Adam Sandler intentionally it sort of intersperses these likable loser characters in between his, sort of nasty characters. So he can say, if you got to pick one of these guys that you think I am, pick the nice guys. And then you sort of get away with doing the more nasty stuff. But yeah, the things where he's usually yelling and screaming at people, it's, I'm thinking of Happy Gilmore where he's in a bar yelling at Shooter McGavin, who's this really pompous, rich jerk who's the
you
winner
eat pieces
of the
of
golf.
shit for breakfast? Yeah.
Yeah, he makes him look like an idiot. And we're him. We're Happy Gilmore in that, of course. We're rooting for him. And so even when he's not this sweet, lovable guy, we're still rooting for him. So I think Andrew Dice Clay always took the tack of, I'm the coolest guy in the room and I'm better than everybody, no matter who's here. And that's a little harder to relate to and get behind for a longer period of time. It's fun as a gimmick for a minute,
But you even see that in movies like Waterboy, where when he gets really violent, and it's established very early on in the movie that this is kind of like a down on his luck guy who means super well, but he just flies into a rage. But when we first see him really fly into said rage, it's just because he loves water so much. so the rage comes from a place of love. You see?
Yeah.
So
an easy
it's
leap
fine.
to take, sure.
Right?
Yeah, we all love water. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Just throw into water. It's completely understandable.
Yeah, no, I don't know. When I was on a Florida football team, I didn't act that way, but that's fine. That's okay. That's all right. Yeah.
Next question. Why has Adam Sandler's comedy changed so much? Also enjoying the show. Happy face. That's a nice question.
Aw. Hey.
I reject the premise. I feel like I think as a young man that comedy works. I think as a very old man that comedy works. I think he is currently 50-ish.
51, I think.
He's kind of in that, sure, he's got the kids and I don't know if it works where he's at right now, which is why he's having he's doing phenomenally well compared to most people, but he's having a little bit of trouble right now with his comedies. But I think once he hits 60 and up, right back into Shabba Dabba Doo, I'm making money off of you.
Yeah.
Well, once he started,
it's true.
he started doing Disney movies, and they sort of just took off. And people realized that families will go to see this guy when he's not rated R. But now he has this deal with Netflix. He can sort of do whatever he wants. And that results in something like The Ridiculous Six a couple of years ago, where a dozen Native Americans walked off the set because of how offensive it was. But then not long after, we find out it was the most downloaded and watched Netflix movie ever, which is...
There's a lot of bros in the world, and Will Ferrell bros were once Adam Sandler bros.
Yeah, and now they're coming back.
Yeah.
I feel like the last two of his contractual 7 Netflix movies are going to be fire. They'll be great. He's just got to find his rhythm, and then. But yeah, I think that's a very good point. He is in that stage of a human's life where it doesn't really, it's not kind of incongruous with his sort of I'm gonna take people down a peg. Then I was he's the people now. He's the guy who I can't be.
He's the establishment, as a 50-year-old.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I mean he's the algebra teacher at this point.
And he's also gone on to do dramatic things, and he's received critical acclaim.
Yeah, we all love Spanglish.
Yes, the hard-hitting drama Spanglish.
Punch Drunk Love, he was good.
Punch Drunk Love, I think, is a beautiful, heartbreaking movie. I think he does an amazing thing. And
I will say, I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No.
But I will just...
I'm used to it.
Yep. Okay, great. I'll just keep talking to my point. I wonder, here's a cool theory that I'm putting out there that I have not tested at all, and I just thought of right now. But... because he has posited himself so much as being that adolescent boy in the public imagination, it's okay to watch him have his growing spurts and temper tantrums and issues, and we are willing to wait for him to grow, whereas with other artists, we are not willing to wait for that, and we will simply bury them.
Yeah, why is it because he was so firmly established as an adolescent so early on that we allow that? Is that what you're saying?
I wonder, yes.
He's our son, and
He's
we're
our
just
son,
like
yeah.
he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
He'll figure it out.
He had his bar mitzvah, and my God, we did all we could at it, but like, oh boy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, next question. If you ever had a child, would you play this album for them? You know, I was reading something, an interview with him the other day, and he was saying how there are certain things that he's just introducing to his own children. He lets them listen to part of the Hanukkah song. He even acknowledges that parts of the Thanksgiving song have some sexual innuendo. He says it's going to be a long haul before they get to listen to At a Medium Pace.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if he's censoring that from his kids...
Well, I mean, if I was
Maybe
his
eventually.
kid, I don't want to hear my dad sing about fucking himself in the ass with a shampoo bottle. Like, I'm just going to put that out there.
Yet.
You know, yeah.
You're not ready
I
yet.
think maybe ever,
Yeah?
but
You never want to hear that? Fair enough.
yeah.
That's
Well, I'll get Jim Letwin to listen to this, and he can tell me. Like, it'll be fine.
If my hypothetical kid was hiding that from me, I'd know that kid would eventually be fine.
Would turn out okay.
Like if that's the worst thing when he's 12 years old, he or she is 12 years old, then
What if it's
sure.
the third worst thing?
Then I call Child Protective Services.
On
Give
yourself?
up. Yeah.
I can't handle this kid.
I'm no good, man. Give me out.
I'm doing a terrible job here.
I have removed myself from this equation.
I'm a very self-aware dirtbag.
John, would you play it for your kids?
As soon as I heard that question, I had like just a flash forward
panic
vision of me playing any tracks on this album and just looking at my kid like, Dad,
Dad,
I
you're
loved
gross.
this when I
I'm
was
not
12.
funny.
Exactly. I'd be like, Dad, what the hell is this? So no, probably not. Probably
Yeah.
not. No.
Fatty McGee, maybe.
Yeah. I will say my favorite line on the album is at the beginning of Fatty McGee, Tim Meadows going, "Well, we came to the right place, the oh-so-quiet library." I was just like, hey, Tim Meadows can sell anything.
I wrote that down because that is such a Tim Meadows line, too. Yeah, he's so, well,
Yeah.
here we go.
Oh, it's such that I hope nothing bad happens here. Something clearly will, but all right.
All right, next question. This is a long one. Given the problematic nature of some of these sketches and the lineage of some of the writers, like Odenkirk and O'Brien, do you feel that in some ways this was a counterpoint to the burgeoning alt-comedy world of shows like Mr. Show and young comics like Brian Posehn and Sarah Silverman, as well as Janine Garofalo?
Shabba-dabba-doo.
Wow,
That's
that's
a yes or no question.
I'm gonna go ahead with a solid maybe. What that is, I just want to say, like, that is a very cool, nuanced, dense, awesome question, and
Yeah, that none of us are qualified in.
absolutely not. Are you kidding me? I didn't even finish my theater degree. How can I answer this? I feel like this album and the subsequent Sandler albums were coming at a very specific time. And yes, I can absolutely see how inspiration was derived from it, but also the way that the comedy scene at that time was completely shaped by the way these albums were coming out. As was previously discussed, this was like a real return to sketch album creation. Like, you didn't see a whole lot of sketch comedy being put out on albums before this happened for like a long, long time. I can certainly see this as being a jumping off point where it is really opening the door to like the stupidest, dumbest, best, worst thoughts you've ever had and realizing that they can actually be produced. And I think we do see in work that came after this album, I think we see people who are applying a higher level of intelligence and nuance to ideas that are fundamentally rooted in the emotions of this kind of album, where we start with, okay, it's fun to watch someone get beat up. Yup. Sandler takes it to the place where it's fun to watch people get beat up. But then you have other artists who are taking it to a place where, like, okay, great. Let's watch these people get beat up, but let's add more reasons to it. Let's add more nuance. Let's add more like shades of gray to it. Let's add like some goddamn art world chiaroscuro to it.
Sandler was never interested in any of that.
No,
just
he
wanted
wasn't.
To make people laugh as easy as possible, and he thought of things that he thought were dumb. I mean, he says his influences were Cheech and Chong, stoner comedy. I mean, he was born in '66, so he was coming of age in the '70s when Cheech and Chong were big. He listened to Derek and Clive, which is Dudley Moore and Peter Cook, and a lot of that stuff is very sophomoric. I mean, some of it has less of a point than even some of the stuff on this album.
But you can build a point onto something that has no point.
You can, but I don't know if he does.
Well, I don't think he does. I don't
Yeah.
think he does.
Yeah.
I think
But this
Other
was the first
people-
time people talked about this stuff on a comedy album, and it might have given license to people afterwards to make something of that kind of content.
yeah, I would agree. Like when you already have like that kind of baseline that is set out for you, where you have this great, a sedimentary layer that is like comedically, geologically there for you. It creates something solid that you can really build up for yourself. I don't think that's as you said, that's not what he was intending to do, but I can certainly see just from myself, like I grew up on his stuff, on this really fun, dumb, stupid stuff. And then I realized, like, you can really make some interesting, smart, weirder things out of this fundamentally stupid bullshit that we all really fucking enjoy. So that's my hot take on that. Gonna drink my beer now.
Yeah, and I think it's very telling that a lot of, Mr. Show, Kids in the Hall, Ben Stiller's show, etc., like came a couple of years after this, because this is very base and simple and effective, really, really works. But then after that, it's like, okay, well, let's see if we can do something a little bit more subversive or nuanced.
Once this audience grows up a little, maybe type of thing.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree with the premise of that question. I think it is a counterpoint to a lot of what would come afterwards. I mean, the content obviously is bluer and dirtier and more based than anything that Adam Sandler could do on Saturday Night Live. But I think in terms of structure, in terms of how it's carried out, it is very much Saturday Night Live, format-wise.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of those people worked on it, but I think, it's true. A lot of that stuff came out shortly after this album, because it was like, oh, we do have this medium, we can do it, we can do kind of whatever we want. But this was that sort of first pass that it was still kind of in the Saturday Night Live format, like that.
Which still makes me amazed that they put so much work into the sound design. Like, I feel like it's way better audibly than it needs to be.
But then imagine hearing that and realizing, like, wow, like people worked so hard on this and made this sound so good. Imagine if I could write material that, like, made this like even better and like still kept how like gross and dumb it was, but still somehow made it smarter, but also got really great sound design on it. I think at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, it opened up a lot of minds and a lot of possibilities to what could be done with the medium.
I really think he's helped. I think this album helped pave the way for comedy albums as we know them now. I don't think it. I mean, I don't think it deserves credit as an incredibly clever, wonderful, beautiful album, but I think it deserves more credit than it gets for sort of helping the resurgence in interest in comedy albums. And I think it's recently sort of dovetailed with the advent of podcasts themselves and MP3s and Spotify and things like that, and just that people can access these things much more easily. And it's a great thing to have on in the background when you're working or you're doing chores or you're driving, and people are realizing that you can still get great entertainment that are just for the ears. That is just for the ears, and I think it's so cool that he tapped into that. It was sort of a lost art, and this is 1993, and we're only now, I think, catching up to where people are really starting to produce for the ear again and realize there's a real audience for that. That's really cool. And that brings us to our next question. How do you think this album has influenced comedy that came afterwards? It sort of ties into what we were just talking about. But
I think this was like a first step album for a lot of like Generation Y, born in the 80s comedy people, where it's like, okay, like this is simple and basic but effective, and then like let's go from there to Kids in the Hall, Mr. Show.
Yeah. Well, hearing this makes you think you can do anything. You know, if nothing else. I mean, it's not necessarily the best kind of comedy, but there's no boundaries here whatsoever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I have a new answer to this one. I think my answer to the previous question was my answer to this one.
Okay, we'll just copy that and paste it into this
Just
part.
paste it again.
Yeah.
But make it louder. Like I just said everything again, but louder.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
I'm so tempted to really do that. It'd be so weird. See if anyone notices and writes this letter.
Yeah, just apply a diaphragm
Yeah.
filter onto it. Good. Yeah.
Kat, thoughts? This album is an influence for future comedy?
I suppose I guess I like what John said. It's similar to what I had already said. So I shall also leave it at that.
Fantastic. We'll just cut this whole part out.
Great.
All right. Okay, guys. Well, this has been an amazing chat. Thank you guys so much for coming here. And I'd like to get just your final thoughts on the album and Adam Sandler and anything that's in your head. We'll start with John.
Oh my God. Shocker. I've usually been like at the end of the line. The stage picture, folks at home, is that I'm on the end of the line. So I thought I'd be able to go last. I was taken aback listening to this earlier in the day. This used to be a cassette I would listen to when I was delivering papers as a boy. And
you have a Walkman, John?
I did have a Walkman. Yeah. And it was startling to hear an album that I haven't heard for probably 25 years, something like that. Is that accurate?
24.
24?
Well, if you heard it a year before it came out, yeah.
All right.
John was on the cutting edge.
That was off the cuff math.
You heard it the year it came out and then never revisited it?
I was in the studio. I was like, this is going to be great. I was an 11-year-old boy in the studio. Rick James in the Eddie Murphy video in the booth, like, yeah, you got it. That's the take. No, it was really, it was a trip going back to this record. I think its place in history is undeniable. It is very weird spending a lot of time consuming and producing comedy for many, many years since, and then going back to this. But there is a charm to it, and Tim Meadows nails that library line, and that's the way I feel.
We came to the right place. The
oh so quiet library. He knows how bad a line it is, but he's like, I am committing.
Leans into it. So great.
Yeah.
Kat, final thoughts?
Oh, okay. This was an album and a kind of comedy that I loved so very desperately, deeply when I was at a formative age. And I know I've mentioned this before, but it was also kind of the only comedy that was accessible to me as a kid growing up in Brantford, Ontario. I couldn't go to comedy clubs as a kid because also everyone's drinking there. You know, you're 12, you don't want to go to a bar unless your parents are taking you. That's how you know you're in Brantford. But I just it spoke to me in its silliness and also in the way that it's. It didn't care how offensive it was. And I loved that at that age because I hadn't experienced anything quite like that. But also I didn't realize that I could be offensive and ridiculous in a way that didn't paint me as constantly the butt of a joke. And that took me a long time to realize. So to go back and listen to it now, to know that I'm someone who is, relatively funny, I make money at this, but where I because I'm a lady, I was not really included in it. To be able to be at this place now where I am confident in the stuff that I'm making, it was shocking to hear like how different a time it was. And I will love the songs for what they are. Of course I will. I will love the memories I have of listening to it with my family, with my brother in particular, and laughing at it. But I will also know now how to move forward and to make things better, to in the vein of people making dumb, silly, stupid, ridiculous jokes, but in a way that doesn't beat down the people who need them the most.
It's nicely said. It's hard
Thank
to
you for the scattered applause. I really appreciate that.
it's hard to resist putting our present filter on past entertainment, isn't it? Jordan, final thoughts on the album? Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, how are you feeling?
I owe everybody here a Portlandia Season 3 DVD.
It's very progressive.
I think the lesson of Adam Sandler is do whatever you want to do unapologetically. And for most comedy people, the audience that you will find will enable you to make some secondary income off of it and probably still have a day job. And then, like myself, who might run people up hills for a living. And for others, like Adam Sandler, the wheelhouse that you are working in will afford you to be able to like purchase islands. And that's okay because that's his wheelhouse and other people's is something else. But I love listening to that and feeling like this is the first draft of the thing that I'm listening to. And I feel like he did not like acquiesce anything. And this is exactly what he wanted, and I love that about it.
This is not a guy who had sold out. You cannot. I mean, in
or he sold out so early that you
cannot,
don't even. you can't even tell. Yeah.
Yeah, if you sell out by page 3, by page 20, you're just like a genius.
No, but yeah, I mean, the whole like he doesn't really ever talk about the wealth thing. I think like. In the SNL wheelhouse years that he was in, I think Dana Carvey was supposed to be the guy, or Farley, which obviously went another way. It happened to happen to Adam Sandler, and I do really respect that he was like, this happened to me, and I'm going to include my friends in this crazy ride that like some people may think I don't deserve, but that's okay. Like I'm going to employ people that I really love and respect along the way. And he's never changed who he is. Not that I know him personally, but like it feels like that. And I do love and respect that about him.
Cool. All right. So pick your friends carefully, folks. You never know when they'll turn out to be rich and famous. Okay, thanks so much for being here, guys. This has been a great show. Let's give a hand for our guests here. We got John Blair. You can find him on Twitter at OKJohnBlair. Kat Letwin. You can find her on Twitter at Letwinka, Letwinka. And Jordan Kennedy, who you can find right here at the Social Capital Theater, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, teaching improv and performing as well.
Throw a rock at my window.
Remember, folks, we're here the first Thursday of every month, and proceeds above our costs always go towards Covenant House. Next month, we'll be back here January 4th, Thursday. Alan Turner will be my guest, also known as John Paul Mullet from Mullet's Night Show, and he chose Steve Martin's Let's Get Small, the first comedy album I ever heard. I'm very excited about this show. Remember to please subscribe to the podcast and give us a star rating and review. It helps so much getting the word out there. I'm Jason DeLine. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight for Comedy Album Book Club.
As a major research institution, Arizona State University offers the most online bachelor's degree programs, along with world-class faculty and dedicated support. Discover why ASU is ranked #1 in innovation for 9 consecutive years. Tap to learn more.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. So you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected. And 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.